Welcome back, everyone. Today we are doing a deep dive into An Unpleasant Predicament by Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Ah, yes, this one's a classic.
Yeah, and it's funny, this one actually came from one of our listeners who thought it would be a great pick for the show. And I have to agree.
It's a gem, that's for sure.
It's got that Dostoevsky style, but there's this lightness to it. It's almost like he's poking fun at, well, at everyone, really.
Oh, absolutely. It's like he's holding up a mirror to all of our social anxieties and awkwardness, but with a wink and a nod.
Exactly. So why don't we set the stage a little bit for folks who might not be familiar with the story?
Sure thing.
All right, so we're in 19th century St. Petersburg, right? A time of big changes, social reforms, new ideas floating around.
Lots of champagne being popped, it seems.
Oh, yeah, definitely lots of champagne. And the story kicks off with three generals. Stepan Nikiforovich, who's the host, and he's got his old buddies over, Semyon Ivanovich, and our main man, Ivan Ilyitch Pralinsky.
The gang's all here.
That's right. They're celebrating, well, sort of celebrating. It's Stepan Nikiforovich's new home and also his birthday, although he usually tries to ignore that part.
A man after my own heart.
But the champagne is flowing. They're having this very formal, very proper conversation. And right away, you get a sense of the dynamics between these guys. You've got Stepan Nikiforovich, a confirmed bachelor, loves his routine, loves his peace and quiet.
Sounds like someone's done their research.
Well, got to be prepared. Then you got Semyon Ivanovich. He's the cynical one, always observing, always got that little ironic smile playing on his lips.
The observer. Always an interesting character to have around.
Absolutely. And then we have Ivan Ilyitch Pralinsky, newly promoted, full of himself, and bursting with all these grand liberal ideas about humanity and how to treat the people who work under him.
Oh, Pralinsky. He's a character and a half.
He really is. And it's almost comical the way he goes on about logic and kindness and how it's all going to magically fix society's problems. I mean, you can practically hear Semyon Ivanovich chuckling to himself in the background. And even Stepan Nikiforovich, polite as he is, doesn't seem all that convinced.
It's that classic Dostoevsky move, right? To set up these characters who are so wrapped up in their own ideas, their own self-importance, that they become completely blind to the reality around them.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so funny and so cringeworthy at the same time.
Because we all know a Pralinsky, right? We've all been in those situations where someone's trying so hard to impress, to appear virtuous, that they end up making a complete fool of themselves.
Okay, so this is where things start to get really interesting. Pralinsky, feeling like his profound insights aren't quite landing with his audience, and maybe emboldened by a little too much champagne.
As one does.
He hears music coming from a nearby apartment. It's a wedding celebration. And he finds out from a policeman that it's the wedding of one of his own clerks, a low-ranking registration clerk named Pseldonimov.
A subordinate, no less. This should be good.
And here's where Pralinsky's mind takes this incredible leap. It's like he convinces himself that attending this wedding, uninvited, late at night, is not only a good idea, but a noble, almost heroic act of humanity.
Of course, why not?
Right. He paints this picture in his head of himself arriving like some kind of benevolent patron, gracing these simple folk with his presence, uplifting them with his wisdom and good cheer. It's pure self-delusion, and it's hilarious.
And it speaks to this deeper human tendency, right? To inflate our own importance, to believe that our intentions alone are enough to justify our actions.
Oh, absolutely. And the reality, as you can imagine, is far less glamorous.
Let me guess, it doesn't go exactly as planned.
Not quite. First, he trips over a dish of galantine, this jelly meat thing, right by the door.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Then he stumbles into this crowded, lively wedding, and you can practically hear the record scratch. Everyone stops, stares. The music dies down. It's like the air gets sucked out of the room. Talk about an awkward entrance.
Oh, I can picture it perfectly. The sudden silence, the confused stares. It's like stepping into a time warp.
Exactly. And poor Pseldonimov, the groom, is just mortified. He looks at his boss like he's about to be fired on his wedding night.
Understandably so. Talk about a buzzkill.
So now Pralinsky's stuck. He's in this increasingly awkward situation, and he's desperately trying to salvage it. And who should appear but Akim Petrovich, the head clerk from Pralinsky's office.
Ah, Akim Petrovich. Another classic Dostoevsky character. The timid, slightly pathetic, but ultimately harmless little man.
Right, and Pralinsky laxes onto him like a lifeline. He starts rambling, trying to explain why he's there, dropping names, telling this long, pointless story about his missing carriage. It's all so forced, so transparent.
But it's also incredibly revealing. Pralinsky's so focused on justifying himself, on maintaining this image of himself as a good and virtuous man, that he completely misses the cues, the discomfort of everyone around him.
Yeah. And Pseldonimov, bless his heart, just sits there, mostly silent, probably wondering when and how this is all going to end.
It's that classic power dynamic, isn't it? The subordinate who's obligated to be polite, to endure the awkwardness, even if they'd rather be anywhere else.
And then, in this moment of unexpected grace, Pseldonimov's mother appears with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. It's this simple, genuine gesture of hospitality, and for a brief moment it seems to touch something in Pralinsky.
It appeals to his idealized view of the common people, this romanticized notion of their simple virtues. But even that can't fully bridge the gap he's created.
Nope, it doesn't last long. Pralinsky, feeling a little more at ease, maybe a little too at ease, launches into this long, rambling toast, and it's just, well, it's excruciating. You can practically feel the cringe in the room.
Another misstep. He just can't seem to read the room, can he?
Not at all. And then we get introduced to a whole cast of other characters at this wedding, each adding their own layer of awkwardness to the mix. There's a student who tries to make a joke about a dream book, which Pralinsky completely misses.
Oh, I love that detail. It's like a microcosm of the whole story. Pralinsky's so caught up in his own world that he's completely oblivious to the humor, the subtle social dynamics happening around him.
Exactly. And then there's this journalist from a satirical paper, The Firebrand, I think it was called, and Pralinsky manages to offend him, which probably won't end well for him later.
Adding insult to injury.
And then there's this tall officer who's just desperate to impress Pralinsky, hanging on his every word.
Scrambling for a promotion, perhaps.
Probably. And then comes the most absurd conversation of the whole night. They get into this debate about Pseldonimov's name, whether it should be spelled with a P or a P's.
Oh, no, really?
Oh, yes. And they go on and on with Pralinsky holding court and Aki Petrovich and the officer chiming in, all trying to outdo each other with their linguistic expertise. It's just painful.
It's that classic Dostoevsky satire, right? Poking fun at the pretensions of the educated class, their need to dissect and analyze everything, even something as trivial as a name.
And meanwhile, you just know Pseldonimov is dying inside.
I can only imagine.
But here's the thing. This is where the whole story takes this unexpected turn. A rumor starts spreading through the wedding that Pralinsky is, well, let's just say, a little top-heavy.
Oh, they think he's drunk.
Exactly. And suddenly, everything changes. The awkwardness, the tension, it all melts away. People relax, start enjoying themselves again. They can finally write off Pralinsky's behavior as a result of too much champagne.
It's like a collective sigh of relief.
It really is, and it's such a brilliant commentary on social dynamics, how quickly perceptions can shift, how easily we categorize people, and how that categorization can, in a weird way, set everyone free.
It's that classic Dostoevsky twist, right? The unexpected turn that reveals something profound about human nature.
Absolutely. And poor Pralinsky, bless his heart, remains completely oblivious. He's still basking in the glow of his own self-importance, convinced that he's made some positive impact on these people.
Oh, the irony. It's almost Shakespearean.
It really is. And to top it all off, the journalist, the one Pralinsky offended earlier, is now silently plotting revenge. So this whole unpleasant predicament might have some further unintended consequences down the line.
A classic setup for a sequel.
Well, Dostoevsky didn't write one, unfortunately, but it certainly leaves you thinking.
It does.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's worth asking, what is it about this story that makes us laugh, that makes us cringe, that makes us think about our own social blunders? Is it the slapstick humor of Pralinsky's awkward entrance, the sharp irony of his self-delusion? Or is it something deeper, this unsettling sense of absurdity that Dostoevsky captures so perfectly? Maybe it's all of those things. Maybe it's about recognizing that part of ourselves in Pralinsky, that part of us that wants to be seen as good, as virtuous, but sometimes stumbles and fumbles in most hilarious and cringeworthy ways. And maybe, just maybe, it's a reminder to laugh at ourselves, to embrace the absurdity of it all, and to remember that even our best intentions can sometimes lead to the most unpleasant predicaments.
Well said. On that note, I think it's time for another glass of champagne.
I think you might be right. Until next time, folks.